After the dispatcher incident, I thought the HOA might finally comprehend the futility of challenging me on my own land. I was wrong. Karen, in particular, had never been one to learn from past mistakes. Her next move was audacious even by her standards. The HOA sent me a formal notice demanding that I vacate my ranch, citing alleged community encroachment and improper use of land, claiming that my property infringed on HOA regulations. The letter was thick with jargon, vague threats, and, of course, Karen's signature scrawled across the bottom. I read the notice calmly, sipping my morning coffee on the porch. Ranger lay at my feet, tail thumping softly, as if sensing that this was about to become another lesson in consequences. My first thought was amusement, then strategy. I could have ignored the letter, called their bluff, or filed another lawsuit. But this required a more comprehensive response. I began researching the HOA's property holdings in detail. Their neighborhood, a collection of tightly packed houses, manicured lawns, and luxury gates, was built on land with convoluted ownership histories. The more I investigated, the more I realized a critical fact. Due to unpaid taxes, certain liens, and previous defaults, it was entirely possible for me to legally acquire significant portions of their property. The thought struck me, if they wanted to assert control over my ranch, perhaps I should assert control over theirs. Over the next several weeks, I coordinated purchases quietly and strategically. I acquired key parcels, including the HOA office, multiple homes, and essential access roads. Each transaction was fully legal, documented, and executed in such a way that the HOA would be unaware until it was too late. By the time I was finished, the neighborhood they had tried to use to control me was, technically and legally, mine. The day I revealed the change in ownership was unforgettable. Karen arrived at the ranch, brimming with indignation, demanding explanations and reiterating that I had to vacate my property. I invited her to sit and have a coffee, calmly explaining, "Funny thing about property rights? It seems you've misplaced yours." She stared at me, confusion flooding her features. "What do you mean?" she demanded. I smiled and handed her a folder containing deeds, legal transfers, and notarized documents proving that I now owned the HOA neighborhood in its entirety. Every house, every road, every office she had once claimed authority over now legally fell under my ownership. Her eyes widened in disbelief, a mix of panic and shock overtaking her usual bravado. "This," I said, pointing to the folder, "is what happens when someone tries to dictate terms on property they do not own. You wanted me out of my ranch, so I acquired yours. Every attempt to control me now legally falls under my authority." The reactions from other HOA members were instantaneous. Confusion, outrage, and disbelief rippled through the group as they realized the full implications. They were now effectively tenants on land I controlled. Any attempts to interfere with my ranch could now have repercussions for their homes, their access roads, and even their HOA office. Karen attempted to argue, to negotiate, to claim some loophole or error, but every point was met with calm legal documentation. The irony was almost perfect. The very organization that had spent years trying to assert control over my property was now under my control, legally and financially. Over the following days, I implemented subtle but unmistakable changes. Notices were posted, access points were controlled, and HOA members were informed of the new reality. Any interference with my ranch would now carry consequences extending into the neighborhood they had once considered theirs. Ranger patrolled both the ranch and critical points in the neighborhood, a silent reminder that the authority now rested with me. The HOA's internal meetings devolved into chaos. Karen tried to rally members, promising lawsuits, appeals, and protests, but the legal facts were undeniable. Each claim she made was countered with precise documentation, leaving the HOA powerless and publicly humiliated. Their credibility evaporated as word spread through the community. The ranch owner had not only defended his property but had absorbed the very neighborhood that had once tried to threaten him. Standing on the porch that evening, overlooking the ranch and now the outskirts of the acquired neighborhood, I reflected on the sequence of events. Each previous conflict, the explosive gates, the mailbox, the 911 calls, and the trespassing fines, had built toward this moment. The HOA had underestimated the power of preparation, strategy, and legal leverage. Their audacity had become the blueprint for their own undoing. Ranger sat at my side, tail wagging lazily, as the sun set over the valley. The ranch was secure, the neighborhood legally under my authority, and Karen and her HOA had been taught a lesson in humility, property law, and strategic dominance that would be remembered for decades. It was a perfect, undeniable truth. When someone attempts to dictate terms on property they do not own, the consequences are only limited by the creativity, planning, and resolve of the rightful owner. And on my ranch, and now across the entire neighborhood, that authority was absolute.